Alrighty guys, hello and welcome to my review of the OwePowe WGR series mousepad. Now, OwePowe actually reached out to me and sent me this unit to review, so a massive thank you goes out to them for that. But besides them reaching out to me, I actually thought that this was quite an interesting mousepad, just purely based off of the design. So because they're quite a small company, you might not necessarily have heard of them, and I'll be completely honest, I hadn't either before they reached out to me. But after looking at their mousepads, they did look very interesting. So I decided to have a look and give it a go. And honestly, I was very positively surprised. So to go over some information for this mousepad, it comes in at 490 by 420 millimeters with a 4 millimeter base thickness. The stitching is pretty good quality, honestly, for what you'd expect. It's below the surface a little bit. And in general, the quality is very good too. There was a very small issue on this corner here with my unit, but nothing that affected me during gameplay, and in general it was a very pleasant experience to play with. The surface is made of a nylon and spandex mixture, and I'll go into it a little bit more in a second because this is actually a very interesting and unique surface. It's not like something that I'd tried before out of the 20 odd mousepads that I have laying around here. It has a polyurethane base with this very nice looking pattern. And while it's not the stickiest base ever, with a little bit of moisture underneath, it is more than sufficient for what you'd expect. As I mentioned, the base is 4 millimeters thick, which is relatively thick for this kind of pad. However, it does give a little bit of resistance when pressing into it. It isn't necessarily a soft pad, but it's definitely not a firm pad either. It's kind of somewhere in between. In terms of the pad's speed, it is advertised on their website as a speed/control pad, which is something that quite a few companies do, and I personally am not a massive fan of because I feel like those two things are quite diametrically opposed. But based on my own testing, this is actually one of the fastest pads that I own. The surface alone is very comparable to my copy of an Artisan Raiden Mid, which is known as pretty much the quickest pad that you can get as a cloth pad on the market as of now. It means that it's a lot easier to press into the pad in order to stop your mouse, which does give it a little bit more of an element of control. So for the first time, I'm not entirely mad about the speed/control advertisement on the website, although I still don't really think it makes much sense to advertise things like this. I can also understand why they did it. Now, getting into the design a little bit more, they kind of have this very like cartoonish artistic style. All of the designs are completely hand-drawn, so there's no AI used, and the WGR series currently comes with 4 different design choices. So as I said, the surface feels very, very unique. The stitching is very tight, kind of as you'd expect from the Raiden, which is where it gets its more speedy qualities from. But it has almost a waxy feeling to it, which does offer a little bit more control. So the Raiden has a very like swift, smooth glide, and so does this, but it almost feels like there's a small coating on the pad. Now, to my knowledge, there isn't any coating of any kind, but it definitely has a very, very unique feeling, which is something that I haven't gotten from many other mousepads. Throughout my testing, I used several different mouse skates, such as the Obsidian Air Pros, the Jade Air Pros, the stock skates on my Lamzu Maya X, and also the stock skates on my WL Mouse Sword X. And in general, there was a little bit of feedback from the skates through the mousepad, but nothing too significant. Obviously, the bigger the skate size, the less you're going to feel this feedback. So I felt it the most with dot skates, such as the Jade Airs and the Obsidian Airs, but all in all, it really isn't very noticeable, so I don't think that this is a massive point to have to consider for many people. Because of the somewhat faster nature of the pad, I really enjoyed tracking heavy games with this, but because it still offered some control, I really did find applicability through a wide variety of scenarios. So I really enjoyed doing target switching and tracking scenarios with this mousepad, but static switching and static clicking definitely were very much doable as well, much more so than I would have on, say, a Raiden, which has a comparable speed, just because of that plush base, as I mentioned previously. I do typically not like plush bases as much, just because I tend to put a lot of pressure into my mousepad, but because it is a little bit more resistant, I didn't have much of an issue with my skates bottoming out, even when I put a lot of pressure into the pad, which is something very positive, especially for faster pads, where I use a lot of pressure into the mousepad to kind of slow down my movements when I do quicker flicks. Coming in at $38 US, this is a pretty cheap mousepad, especially when you compare it to options like Artisan pads. Now, it is a much smaller company and less well known, so there might be some more quality control issues, kind of like with my stitching on the side here. But in general, for under $40, this is an incredibly impressive pad. I genuinely had very low, if any, expectations when I got contacted by the company, but I have to say I'm incredibly positively surprised. And I'm not only saying this because they sent me the pad, I've genuinely put a lot of time into this pad since receiving it. Overall, I can absolutely recommend this pad for anyone who's looking for a new, cheaper speed pad with a lot of control elements to it as well. The design of the pad is something very unique, and while I did wish that they offered just single color pad options like a fully black or a fully red option, I can also appreciate that this is a very unique point that they have to their pads. So overall, if you're looking for a mouse pad with a very unique design as well as a very unique surface, then I can absolutely recommend the WGR series by OwePowe. Thank you very much for watching this review today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions or ideas for things for me to review next, please leave them down below. And apart from that, I hope you all have a fantastic day and see you in the next video. Goodbye.